This is the Book Deal Podcast,
where you will discover the inspiring stories behind your favourite books.
We interview seasoned and debut authors, as well as publishing industry professionals, to bring you the best tips and advice on how to get that elusive book deal.
So no matter what stage of writing you're at, we've got you covered. I'm Tina Strachan.
I'm Madeline Cleary.
And I'm Natasha Rye.
And join us as we pull back the curtain of published authors,
one deal at a time. The Book Deal Podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters which it's recorded on, and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging.
Welcome back to the Book Deal Podcast. I'm Tina Strachan, and this week I'm bringing you an interview with the delightful Jess Galatola, teacher, curriculum writer, and author of picture books and her soon-to-be-released graphic novel. Jess's publication journey is a unique one. Her first book, Some Families Change, was not written with the intent to publish. It was written as a very important resource to help her own children get through a really big change in their own family. Now, following up on that success, Jess continues to weave special messaging into her two new upcoming books, The Witch Who Couldn't Spell and Seasons of Clementine. Jess and I also chat about the importance of children's reading and offering diversity in their choices, and her proactive approach to getting published. Jess Galatola, welcome to the Book Deal Podcast.
Thank you for having me, and it's awesome to be chatting to you today.
Oh, it's very exciting. I hope we get through this chat without that little bird coming and attacking you on your balcony. Your little
no
friend.
promises.
What was it again? Magpie lark? That's out the front?
It looks like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that. You're the expert.
He looked pretty cute. Jess, so it's so great to have you on the pod. There is so much to talk about, and you've got so much coming up for you right now.
Yes.
So two new books out in June this year, and I want to hear all about it and all about you, and I want to hear about your publication journey and your books and why you wrote them, because they all do have some really special messages, and so I'd really like to chat about that. But
thank you.
First, Jess, I do ask this of all my guests, and I like to put them on the spot and ask for their one-liners. So you have a couple of books coming out. So let's start with The Witch Who Can't Spell, which is a picture book coming out in June. What date is it in June again?
She's actually going to be out at the very start of July. So,
July, yeah.
Yeah. So this one's about a little witch who's very bright but has a lot of problems with her spelling, and it leads to disaster and mayhem and a lot of fun and adventure. And she learns to become quite resilient and to give things a go and to let go of trying to get it perfect and just embrace the chaos.
That's a great one-liner. I love that pitch. That's awesome. I'm going to ask you more about that soon as well. And then, of course, you've got a graphic novel coming out soon too, which is really exciting, with Perenti Press, Seasons of Clementine. Tell us about that.
So Seasons of Clementine centers around Clementine, who is a little dreamer who maps out the changing seasons of her life in her cloud journal. So she's a creative and she's a lot of fun.
That sounds beautiful. Do you keep a journal, Jess?
I did as a kid.
Yeah.
My problem with keeping a journal as an adult is I keep many and then I lose them, and then I have to start again, and then I lose them again.
Yeah, that
That's
happens.
a real pattern with me,
I know.
Tina.
I feel like we're a little bit busier now that we're adults with children, aren't we?
We certainly are. And if my children got hold of my journals, well, they'd probably be destroyed and drawn in.
Yeah.
But I do keep poetry journals, and it's funny because I picked up this book to sort of jot down notes today and realized I've used it to write lots of angry poetry and at another season of my life. So now it's also going to have random notes.
Oh, no, I do like that too. Keeping it all together. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a bit of everything. And there'll have to be a Seasons of Jess poetry book coming out soon, maybe.
So many.
Oh, gosh.
That's a great idea.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, I'm going to hire you as my publicist from this point forward.
Anytime. So, Jess, both these books have very powerful messages, as does your first picture book, Some Families Change, which was out in 2025?
2024.
24, that's right, yes. So, and I feel like we'll cover some families change
Mm.
when we talk about your publication journey.
Yeah.
But I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about the messaging behind. We'll start with the witch book, The Witch You Couldn't Spell.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the messaging, why it was important for you to write this book?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess being a teacher, but also now mum of two boys, 8 and 10, spelling comes up a lot. And I see kids get really frustrated when they get to words that do not make sense to them. And you've just got to learn the rule and you just have to explain, well, that's the English language. We've borrowed
Mhm.
words from lots of languages. And that's just how it is. And you just have to learn it. And they get very, very frustrated and roll their eyes at me and make lots of different grunting sounds.
Mhm.
And I thought we've got to embrace that the language we use every day is a bit crazy, it is a bit chaotic. And the title popped into my head first, actually. I said, oh, I've misspelled it again. And then I was having fun with saying the word misspelled. And then from that word came the idea of a little witch called Misspelled who couldn't spell properly and couldn't get her words right, but it would be about homophones. It would be about those words that are spelled exactly the same but mean really different things, because those are the words that drive kids wild. Like they
Yeah.
just
Oh, they still
rain into
drive me
the
wild a little
leadership.
bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, me too, right? Um, and yeah, so the book mainly focuses on homophones, and we follow Wanda through her journey of trying to write these beautiful spells that are well intentioned. She's such a well meaning little witch. She wants to do beautiful things for her friends, but because she spells the incorrect version of the word, the wrong homophone, it actually leads to disaster. And she's so devastated by every disaster because she just meant so well. And it just leads to a lot of anguish. But it's hilarious in the same way because Lou Baker is the illustrator and she is a debut illustrator. And I cannot even express to you how her work jumps off the page and how she has elevated the story to the next level beyond anything I could have ever really imagined she would bring to life. And I had lots of little illustration notes. So it was great that she brought them to life, but then also added her own flavor.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, I think my favorite one is she writes a spell to end the whole school assembly because the witches are just out of their mind bored. But she writes hole and spells the wrong hole. And then there's a sinkhole in the hall and everybody just gets sucked into this hole. There's a cat on fire. Someone's flying around on a broom screaming and it's just chaos.
Mm-hmm. There's a beauty in seeing what the illustrators come up with, isn't it? Like,
It's the best.
you don't want to give them, you certainly have written the page, I guess, with an idea in your mind of what it's going to look like, but you kind of don't want to give them too much, do you? Because it's really important to see what they come up with and how they work with it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to see where a book lands up. And I think with this one too, Lou has hidden so many little Easter eggs in. There's like mice to be looking for in bookshelves and a million little witch familiar animals, and I just love it. I adore her work.
I didn't realize she was a debut, so that's incredible
Yeah,
too. And
yeah.
and she's done an incredible job. And kids love those Easter eggs hidden in there everywhere, don't
Don't
they?
they? They do. My kids are constantly reading it now, trying to find the like extra little hidden things that they haven't seen the first time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, very important book, very important message too, but you're making it fun while doing it, which is great. And I think the teachers are going to love it as well. Do you think it's going to be great in schools?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's really sort of geared to the Australian curriculum, maybe 2 to 5, in terms of where they'd be looking at homophones and playing with language and wordplay. And you've hit the nail on the head, Tina. It has to be fun because kids can smell a didactic message a mile away and then they'll just close the book on you and you're done.
Absolutely.
And nobody wants to be fed language in a way that is painful or laborious or is just going to take all the joy out of it when we as writers know there's so much joy to be had in the English language. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to celebrate that.
Yeah, and I think you've done an incredible job. And of course, you're the perfect person to write it because you have been a teacher for a very long time and now you write curriculum. So
Yes,
you know the perfect way of doing it. And I think you've nailed it. It's such a fun book, and I'm sure the
Oh, you're
kids are
so
going to love
kind.
it.
Thank you. I really, really hope so. I think I just want it to bring them a lot of joy in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. As will Seasons of Clementine, which is really exciting.
Yes, she's very special. She
Yeah.
is an exciting one. I was mentioning to you earlier that Seasons of Clementine actually began as a picture book
Mhm.
called The Cloud Collector. And it was about a little girl who collected up clouds and added them to her journal. And we saw different things happen in her family across the seasons. And she would talk to that by using the clouds as a language to explore that. So it was a little bit lyrical and lovely, but it wasn't getting anywhere. And I thought, I really love the premise and the core idea, and I want to play with it in a couple of different styles. So I submitted it as a early reader, and I started writing it as a verse novel, and that was going in a whole new direction where I was tapping into Greek mythology and the Oceanids and the gods of clouds and things like that, and that was getting really, really cool. But the publisher who I'd submitted it to as an early reader said, I don't really think this is an early reader, but I think there's potential here. And would you consider writing it as a graphic novel? And obviously that was Rochelle from Perenti Press. And so I had a really good crack at turning everything I had into this new format, which I actually adore because I've worked with a lot of play scripts and texts as a drama teacher in high school. And so writing it as a graphic novel felt like writing a script. And that draws on my weird need to add in a lot of illustration notes, because I know this is very bad in picture books and you're not meant to do that, and smack me on the hand. I need to stop doing it. But I love to be able to control the idea of not just what you're saying, but that extra layer of what it's going to look like. And I'm just really sad I don't have the skills to illustrate, because that would be so cool. But writing it as a script, I was able to add in a lot of detail in the way that I was directing what I thought this would look like. And at one point, beautiful Bethany Loveridge said, Jess, I need you to just say what you need in the illustration notes and stop writing it in poetry. We don't need that. Because I was getting very carried away, probably that verse novel influence. And so it landed as this new version of The Cloud Collector, which we ended up calling Seasons of Clementine. And I adore the new title because it really is more about her life and how it changes with the seasons and what she learns as she develops and grows. It's very tweeny, it's very gentle. There'd be nothing in there that's going to be triggering or upsetting for kids, which I think is important, because sometimes you just want a little book of joy that you can recommend when you want to preserve that childhood innocence for someone, you know? Like I know a lot of kids, I live with a 10-year-old girl who is very into romance, and she's very interested in the Twilight stuff in the background.
Yes.
And I'm sort of pushing these things in front of her saying, well, why don't you try this? Because I think, you know, it might be a little bit more around your age and what you're looking for.
Yeah, because the kids are reading up. I've chatted about it
They
before on
are.
the podcast, I think, with Amy Doak, who writes YA, and how the kids are sort of, they seem to be skipping a whole sort of age group of books and going to those YA books that aren't, and because YA is very broad, it's sometimes not appropriate.
And I totally get it, because as a kid I did that. I read up, and I probably read a million things that weren't appropriate for me. But I also had books put in front of me by mum that were meant for me. And so I got to tap into lots of that important early formational reading stuff that I probably needed.
Yeah, no, that's really important. So I find that really interesting what you're saying about your illustration notes or your poetry notes that you had for the graphic novel, because as with picture books, the illustrations are supposed to carry a lot of the story, don't they? Like you don't have
Yes.
to use as many words, which is hard when you're writing
Yeah.
them. I'm sure,
Yeah.
if you've done a lot of them, you get there and you just innately can do it, but it's hard to pare back on those words and just try and envision, especially if you're not the illustrator and you're like, I have all these, the illustration has to be a particular way to carry this part of the story if I want to not
Yeah.
include those words. So there's a fine line there, isn't it, of sort of balancing that.
Absolutely. And it's like sometimes the notes that I write are to allow the illustrator to get into my head, I guess. Like I think, well, the story is clear, but I might have this little sub story going.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've had illustration notes that weren't handed on, and that, I've had illustrators who probably didn't want to look at them, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
There's lessons in being able to let go.
Mm.
And Jasmine Berry, the beautiful illustrator of Seasons of Clementine, I think she appreciated the detail of the illo notes, but there's certainly stuff she would have let go too. There's things she would have used, but I know she mentioned she saw herself in Clementine, like she really identified with this character. So she has brought the characters to life in a way I would not have, but they're so beautiful and so cool. Like her vision is awesome. So, and that's a joy because it is partly your baby, but it's the illustrator's baby too.
Yeah.
And then it's alchemy. It's a whole new thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And I think the cover and the illustrations are really going to draw kids in when they see them. But yeah, graphic novels, they're so big at the moment, aren't they? And it's a whole new way of, I guess, writing. I've never written one myself, but yeah, I see that there's a fair bit of information online now about how you can structure them. So I'm just thinking for anybody who's listening who's thinking, I would love to do a graphic novel, but the structure and the way that you submit it is a lot different, isn't it?
It is. And to be honest, I had not played with this genre prior to Seasons of Clementine. So I went along to one of the Perenti workshops that was so beautifully detailed about how to do it. Sometimes I find you go looking for this information and you find bits and pieces, but you kind of have to bring it all together yourself and figure out the finished product. But they were able to tell you about writing for different age levels and what word counts would look like and how many spreads that might involve. And that was the stuff I needed because that's where you're designing, really. You have to keep that in mind. Even though I'm not illustrating, I need to know where the text begins and ends across the pages, just like you'd map out in a picture book. So I highly recommend the workshops that they do put forward, and those are often linked to their Perenti Prize as well. So if they do this wonderful thing where if you'd like to submit something as a author only, you can do that through the Perenti Prize. And I had another crack. I turned a picture book I had called Dragon Brothers or Dragon Bros into a graphic novel, and it got shortlisted, which was really cool. But I also got this wonderful feedback, like really rich, thorough feedback at the end of the process. Yeah, which meant I understood how to grow the story I had and how to maybe manipulate it so that it would be successful if I want to submit again. So such a valuable thing that they offer, which I love.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, as a drama teacher, having that understanding of how a script is put together with, stage directions and instructions and sides and monologues, like having that idea of a different way to present words was also helpful. I was never into graphic novels as a kid. My best friend Stace actually got me into them as an adult. I've got one here called The Complete Mouse, which is a story written about a man's experience in the Holocaust. And it's really like intricate and beautiful. And I don't know if you've heard of the book Sapiens, but they've created a graphic novel, and it's all about like the first man and all about, So I got into graphic novels as an adult, reading adult graphic novels. Yeah. And then through Bethany, who is a friend of mine who I used to work with in curriculum, I was introduced to beautiful Brent Wilson, who does the Frog, Log and Dave series along with Trent Jensen. and some James Foley as well that the boys love. And I might be one of the few people who has every Perenti graphic novel now, because I've got a copy of Clementine sitting here.
Yeah.
So it's a genre now that I really adore. And I actually think they're more complex than we imagine, because I was having this chat with someone the other day. They said, I find it really hard to sit down and read a comic or read through a graphic novel and follow along. And that can be really true, because so much is jumping out at you at once. And it takes a lot of time to sit and process and take things in. And sometimes I think if you're more visual and you get a lot out of that experience, then it's probably the right genre for you. Because you're engaging that visual literacy as well as, you know, the literacy of reading. So there's a lot of parallel stuff happening as you take in a graphic novel. And I really love that, because you can come back to it, you can sit with it, you can pick it up at another time and see something that you've missed. And I just think that that is a way into reading for kids.
Yeah, and it's probably like everything, like different genres and all those sorts of things, different styles of writing. Everybody's different in their tastes, and there will certainly be people that it appeals to and people that it doesn't. And I've got an 8-year-old who is a non-fiction kid. He's got like all the non-fiction bug books or like Star Wars books, and he loves all those sorts of things. So lots of pictures, obviously.
Yeah, beautiful.
Not much of a plot throughout it, though, for a lot of these books, but that's just what he's drawn to. So I've had to, which is hard because I keep pushing like all these other books onto him. But I've found graphic novels are a good way to sort of be that bridge for him. So it's got lots to look at, and then shorter bits of words, and but still a plot line the whole way through.
Isn't it? It's so difficult as a parent not to be a book pusher, because if you are a lover of books, which we all are, and we want our kids to, you know, experience all the beautiful stuff that we love, but my children and their taste is so different from mine. And I have a 10-year-old who's dyslexic, so he actually really struggles with reading, but he loves books because I've read them to him since he was a baby, and he loves to be read to. But sometimes if he's not feeling confident, I know at least if I leave a bunch of graphic novels lying around, or like heavily illustrated junior fic or even middle grade as he's getting older, he's more likely to pick it up and have a little snoop and have a go on his own. But, you know, the importance of reading to kids, even as they get older, never goes away. I read a study done at Harvard the other day, and it was about, if you read to your kid every day of their life, for the first 5 years of their life, they have 4 million more words in their vocab. And like, that's ridiculous. But it's so important. If you can give them that head start by reading and making that a part of your routine, I can't advocate it enough. It's such a special thing that we do. I really love it. And they get really cross if we don't end the day with books before bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just part of that ritual.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. We've always done that too. And it's so important reading those words to them. And but also just having the availability of those books around too, just in the house. And look, I don't have the actual stats and figures or who I got this from, but I know it was an actual study that was done not too long ago, and it was really, they were measuring, I guess, I don't know, success, and there was particular things that they measured. It wasn't just money or anything like that, it was happiness and all those sorts of things. In adults is can highly be attributed to the amount of books, like the number of books that were in the house when they were growing up. And I was like,
I believe that.
Yeah. And isn't that incredible? And I guess because the number of books you have, the more inclined you are to possibly read them or be familiar with them. Clearly then your parents are reading as well, right? So it's just, it's an indicator of, having just words around you. So important, because we've got to keep these kids reading, haven't we?
We do. And the neuroscience behind it now, is fascinating. They talk about the fact that when you read a book, your brain processes the story as a memory. So you actually experience the book in your brain as if you've done that and lived that experience. And I think that is amazing. And it is true magic. And how powerful is it that no matter who you are, if you have access to reading, you can pick up a book and you can escape. Like you can go to a world that feels different, that could feel safe, that could feel adventurous, and you can do that in your brain by living that experience and making it all happen in the pictures in your mind. And like that's actually amazing.
That's the power of it. And especially like as adults, I think we probably read fiction for escapism and for joy, but for children also doing the same. But it just goes to show with the neuroscience behind it, basically changing your brain and how it's your neurons and all those sorts of things. It goes to show how books with messaging, but not didactic like we were talking about, can be so incredibly helpful and probably life-changing for a lot of children who, like you were saying, maybe even need that escape. So there's got to be some nervous system resetting there, you know, depending if you've got the appropriate book. But also when they're learning to build their skills, when they're learning their social skills, their just how they tackle friendships, all those sorts of things. If they're reading about that, it's healthily being modeled in these books.
That's
like you said, it's like they're actually living it themselves, and so it's equipping them with skills that they need when they head off to school again the next day, the battlefield for a lot of them.
Exactly what they need. And that's why we're all talking about representation in stories at the moment, because everybody deserves to see, you know, a version of themselves in a book, to understand how they process life and practice empathy and resilience and strength of character. Like those things, it's just at the heart of storytelling, because stories are about people. So it makes sense that we're going to be exploring these things along the way through beautiful words.
Yeah. No, I agree. And beautiful words like in your books, Jess. Now, we know how hard it is to get these we know how hard it is to get published, right? We know how hard it is to get these books out there. So I want to hear all about your journey, because we love a good publication journey here, and it's so helpful for people to hear who are trying to be published. So can you take us all the way back to the beginning, Jess, from when you first started reading and writing, which I think was when you were a child?
Sure. Yes, so always loved reading and writing. Loved anything to do with all of that stuff. And then became a teenager and got really into the drama side of stuff. And then, like a lot of authors say this, you know, never thought I could do that as a job. So moved away from writing for pleasure and got very serious about life and had to pick a career. I actually am one of those annoying kids who always knew what they wanted to do. Like I remember looking at my grade 3 teacher going, I could do this and I'd really like to do this because I think you do this so well and I appreciate what you're doing and I want to do that. And then when I decided on drama and English, it was all just keep moving forward from there. And I did dabble as a drama teacher in thinking about writing some play texts just because I wanted work that was geared at the kids I was working with, and I was learning from them. And children are the best teachers. Like they show you so much about the world. So I was playing around, but never, ever thinking of submitting anything. And then I have a very weird publishing journey, Tina. I did it all backwards. I got to 2020 and life blew up for everybody in 2020. For me, that involved going through a separation. And I had very little kids at the time. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I did not know how to explain what was coming. Like I didn't have words for it. So one night I sat down and wrote a story, and it came out for me in poetry because that's how I process. So actually this angry journal of poetry was probably from that time when I read back through it. So I was healing myself through poetry, and I thought, well, I'll write a poem for the kids that might talk about what's happening with our family, that they might be able to understand. And I turned it into a story, and I read it to them every night. And I asked their dad to read it to them every night too when he left the home, because I wanted us to be speaking about what was happening in the same way. I thought that was just super important, that they got the same messaging that they needed, and that I had to look up, how do you talk to young people about this? And the advice was, you have to say the thing truthfully, but in an age appropriate way. So my best friend, who is a pusher of joy, said to me, this is the best. This is such an amazing thing that you've done. You need to please go and turn it into a book. And I said, don't be silly. I don't know how to do that. And I can't draw. And she said, just go and try. Just do it. So I did some research. I figured out eventually you don't have to have illustrations to go with your picture book. In fact, it's probably preferred that you don't. And I changed the story so that it became more open to everybody's experience of changing families, not just my very personal one. And I wanted it to be very inclusive and open to everybody. So Some Families Change is that it is a love letter to parents and kids that basically says everybody's family looks different. Every family can change, and it will, and that's okay. And you'll have some big feelings, and that's okay too. But at the end, just remember you will have a family who love you. And that's just the message. And I submitted it to 3 publishers, and I actually got picked up by 2. Like, I got a response from 2, which I appreciate now is like a miracle. It was a miracle. I think it was divine timing. I think it was we were going through COVID and we were coming home into families and things were tough. And so this was the right story at the right time. EK Books picked it up. I worked with a beautiful publisher called Anuska Jones, who described the book as a warm hug. And she was very much about it. And from there, I became obsessed with like, all right, well, I'm making a picture book. I think I want to do more of these because I have little kids and I'm loving reading to them every night. And maybe I could, that classic, maybe I could do this. And that's when I realized how hard it is to write books, to get into the publishing world. I started an author profile after I signed my contract because I didn't know anybody in the Kidlit community. I had no idea how cool this community is. And I will say it over and over again. My favorite thing about being an author is belonging to this community. If that was the one gift I got out of it and had to walk away tomorrow, it would be that, because it is amazing. The beautiful people that you meet who do what you do and are so like-minded and kind and supportive and generous and giving. It's just been the best gift. It's like I wrote Some Families Change and then got a family, like got this new family. That's how I describe it. It gives me chills.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? All writers are just great, especially Kidlit
They
writers
are.
and the community. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I was pretty much the same, I think, and I guess that's how we met, through the Kidlit community. And I was so sort of shy to be part of that, and I kind of felt like walking into this group where everyone's sort of like already knows everyone and everyone's already an author, and how is this, how do I fit in? And no one cares. They just open up their arms and welcome you in, and you're a part of it.
You are like a peer on the same level, and it's amazing. And I'm glad I found the community. But the publishing stuff is actually much harder than I thought. So after getting that first contract, I was like, cool, I'll just write a whole heap of other books. And then it was like, oh no, it's not actually that easy at all. But I did have, Anuska was beautiful, and I think she really fostered my understanding of picture books and the way to put them together, because I submitted a lot of stuff to her and I got to sign quite a few picture books with EK, which is awesome. And I think it's because their motto is books from the heart on issues that matter. And it spoke to me as a teacher with young children, but who dealt with kids every day, knowing that it's those heart stories that get to them and it's the heart stories that are needed. So that's sort of probably where the most growth happened in those early years. And I wrote that book in 2020, submitted it in 2021. I think I signed at the end of 2021, and then we published in 2024. And so that's where I started learning about the publishing industry and the speed of which it moves. And sometimes feels like a lot of waiting and not a lot of knowing. And then this beautiful surprise at the end that everyone loves to unbox because it's glorious.
It is, and it feels like it takes a really long time, and then all of a sudden it's here. Like everything, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
So did you submit that to slush opportunity piles? What treasure chests or whatever they call it?
Opportunity pile, I like that. Yes. straight into the slush. I
Wow.
kind of like the word slush. It's
Yeah,
fun
I
to
do
say.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it really does feel like a miracle and divine timing that it was picked up. It's just like that's such a huge part of my story, and it's so fun to celebrate, and it's special to my kids too.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes it even just more incredible, doesn't it?
yeah, it's just a really cool chapter of our life that we shared and got through and turned into something beautiful. So slush-pile for that one, and then obviously I was able to submit directly to Anuska from there. But most of my publishing success has come through a slush,
Mm,
which
that's cool.
is testimony to keep going, like just
Absolutely.
keep
And
trying.
that they do get read.
They do,
They do.
they
And there'd be
do.
some absolute treasures in there, but that is often the only way, especially when you're a debut, to get in front of a publisher is to send it. And yeah, look, it can take a really long time, but I'm sure they do get through them eventually. And it is about right timing and all those sorts of things and what someone's looking at that particular point in time. But it also means that it was a great, manuscript that they got in front of them, Jess.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but then likewise, if they don't accept it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't a great manuscript. It's just that it wasn't what they were looking for at that time because
exactly. And I think it's so important to note that not being published is not a reflection of your work. It's just that there's so much to take into account in terms of what publishers are looking for. And there's a broad list. And then sometimes we get frustrated because it comes down to, well, I'll know it when I see it.
mm,
I understand that in a way because you're one person looking at books and deciding what speaks to you, and that's your experience as one publisher, and other people are going to find other golden gems, and so it's not necessarily about your work if you don't get picked up, which is why I love a good rejection letter that actually lets you know we've seen your work and thank you,
yeah.
not this time, it's not for us, but keep going. I love
Mm,
those
mm,
ones because you feel really validated and seen in that process too.
yeah.
But I feel quite resilient about this stuff, Tina. Like it's sort of, I just let the rejection bounce off and just keep going. And I think you miss all of the opportunities you don't go for.
It's absolutely
And
true.
so I just persist. I'm annoying. And some publishers have received so many submissions from me, and I'll just keep going because eventually I'll hit the right note.
Yep. No, absolutely. That's great advice. And we all hear those stories about, these big name authors who have had just collect,
Yeah.
rejection letters, don't they? And I think we need to change the word rejection letter because that just sounds so harsh. It's more of just a pass at this point in time, I think
Yeah.
would be lovely. Yeah, because it is for many other reasons. Yeah, and even if the publisher does really want it, they do have to think they have so many other things to think of, like marketing and finance, and what's the rest of the team going to think with this, and what else have we signed recently? There's just so much to consider there, isn't it?
There
So,
is. Absolutely. I was going to say, I feel like I got maybe 10 stories in total to the final meeting at EK with
wow.
sales. And Anuska would never take anything until she would get me to perfect it first. I very rarely did the editing afterwards. She'd say it's not ready yet because she knew she had to get it, she had
Yeah.
to sell it. And there's a huge process that happens there. And if you can't get the whole team on board, then it's a pass at that time. And yeah, even though I had success, I had a lot of passes as well. And that's okay. It just means they have a whole criteria they need to tick,
Yeah.
And the Cloud Collector was one I did present to them, and they said, oh, sorry, but we have a book that we're publishing soon that is very similar, that's about the clouds. And so that's when I thought, well, okay, maybe I need to try it in a different way.
And so Clementine and with Perenti was at slush-pile as well.
It was out of one slush-pile and an opportunity into another.
Yes.
So it was a no over at Wombat for something I'd submitted.
Yes.
But there was a glimmer of an idea, I guess, that Rochelle said, would you like to try and develop that? And then we'll see how we go from there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great. That's even more special when you have a publisher that sees something in you. And so it's not just a simple yes or no. They see something in you and they want to
Yeah,
work with you. That's
it's
even more special.
glorious.
Yeah,
I know, it's
that's
so cool.
wonderful. Well, why
And
wouldn't they?
well, also they are beautiful publishers to work with, I
Hmm.
have to say, so supportive. And it's working with Bethany, she's really she's treated the story as her own, as well as Rochelle. And so the final product is just a joy. And my story about reading it for the first time is I was on my way to Sydney with my niece for her birthday. And so I read this book in the clouds on the plane.
Oh.
And I was just so emotional because it was so cool. It's so lovely to read it for the first time up high in the heavens.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Oh,
Very
that's
dreamy.
incredible. Oh, so many wonderful stories there, Jess, and so much inspiration. But what what is your main advice for authors then who are trying to be published, especially picture book authors, because it sounds like a very tricky space to try and infiltrate. It's so much competition. I think a lot of people
Mm.
think that picture books are easy to when
Oh,
I have to say, trying to fit a whole story with a message that's not didactic, with trying to be keep the kids entertained, all those sorts of things in usually less than 600 words is incredibly hard.
it is. And I have two of the hardest critics too, because they lose interest very quickly and they'll just shut the book up on me, or they will say, no, I don't want to read that.
Yeah.
So they're actually very helpful. But I guess the thing that I have had to remind myself on this journey, going from the back end in terms of having some success initially and then realizing this is very hard, this is a difficult thing to do, and then joining the community and seeing all the celebrated success, remember your why. So remember why you write, and then do it your own way, and ignore all of the stories around you. Support, embrace, hold up, applaud, but don't compare yourself to those journeys, because you're never going to achieve something in the same way someone else has. And we've talked about that, timing and luck and relationships. And that's really important, is building up your relationships in the industry. I think that's led to success for me, and that we're going along to an opportunity where you can meet a publisher face to face often ends up in more success than you might find in the slush pile,
Mm.
because publishers are not just going to invest in your story, they're going to invest in you as a person
Mhm.
and what you stand for and how you present and how you speak about this craft that's so important, especially writing for kids. They need to know that you like kids and that you have all of the right motivators at the heart of what you're doing.
Mhm.
So do it your own way. Remember why you love to do it, and then present that in the most authentic way you can when you are meeting professionals in the industry. And I think you're going to have success if you can do those things.
Mhm. And there's a few
And
ways. Sorry, keep going.
you're going to hit on that. I was going to say, and success looks different. It doesn't just look like a published book.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And this is why we do this podcast too. I mean, apart from the fact that we love just chatting with people and gives us a good excuse to chat with other authors, but it is just a real demonstration, and all these case studies that we're presenting of just all the different ways that can happen and all the different ways that you can do it. And yeah, and you're right, success for one person is making the New York Times bestsellers list. That could be what they want. And success for another person is getting this very personal, important message out to other children, like what you've done with your books. Yeah, it's different. Or being able to go and talk to kids in schools and those sorts of things. So it's different for everyone. And it's your own journey, isn't it? Like you can't copy
It
anyone
is.
else's. Yeah.
And it's hard. You do, like, do they say comparison is the thief of joy? I really do think that. And something happens to me when I get a contract. I think, okay, when's the next thing? And then I get really mad at myself for not just being present in the moment and looking at this important thing that happened and just embracing it. not needing to want more straight away. Like I'm really trying to now find the joy in every win,
Yeah,
no matter what that looks like.
Yeah, there's human nature playing a bit of a part in that, isn't it? Like we just keep
Isn't it?
shifting our goalposts, but if we do that, we'll never, but yeah, be truly happy because, like you said, we've got to celebrate all those wins, you know, bit of positive
Yeah.
feedback from a publisher, all those sorts of things.
And that goes back to the why. I say, well, why are you even doing this? And it's like, well, I didn't ever do it for that. I did it because it was feeding something in me that I needed to do. And I do it because it's part of my identity now. Like it's part of what just fuels me. So remember the why. It is important.
Yes, certainly. And so getting in front of a publisher, super important. And there's a few ways that we can do that, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you could go along to a conference. So I'm a member of a beautiful writers group. Tina's also a member of Write Links in Brisbane. And they do a BSAB event every 2 years where you can go along and a bunch of publishers will be there and you can pitch in a couple of different ways. You can submit work that's considered in an assessment, or you can verbally pitch. They even do this cool thing where they read the first page, a blind reading. And the
Sounds
publishers,
horrifying.
Everybody is horrified by it. But I kind of love the idea that it is a blind reading. And so
I love seeing everyone else do it, but it sounds horrifying if I were to do it.
I have no filter, so it doesn't worry me. But yeah, it is fun. That is actually where The Witch Who Couldn't Spell came to some success, because it is. So 2 years ago when I went along and had an assessment with James and Denny from Larrikin, I had submitted Misspelled, which is what it was then. And James had said, I don't like that title. Why don't you just call it The Witch Who Couldn't Spell? And I said, well, that's clever. And I will call it whatever you like if you want to publish it. So they got me to make a few changes and then we went from there. So it was definitely a worthwhile experience for me, but also just to learn at those big conferences too. And then going to people's launches and celebrating all of your friends in the community. You meet publishers along the way at some of the launches as well. And I don't know, through the slush as well, when you get a response, it's another way to be chatting to a publisher. They're just people. It's hard to remember that they're just people like you and me. We sort of elevate them to this like, rock star status because we all sort of want something from them. But sometimes they just love to be able to have a chat with you, you know, to get a sense of what your journey is and what you love about books.
Yeah.
So just remember to be a person. I have to remind myself. I put it on my hand. Be a person today.
But it's so true when you go to these conferences and the publishers are there. And I think there's a little bit of that. Yeah, they probably hope that someone just comes up and talks to them like a person instead of just a nervous, you know,
Wreck.
a nervous wreck, like trying to start up a conversation with a publisher. And it is nerve-wracking. But yeah, through all those assessments and there's lots of conferences, ASA does pitch sessions and Kidlit Vic does a lot as well. So there's a few different ones out there, but they are really nice. And yeah, I think it's probably one of those things you just have to do one or two, get over the nerves, and to realize all these things that we've just said is that they are just normal people and just there for a chat, and they love books and so do you. So it's a great way to start a connection. So great advice, Jess. Thank you so much for coming on the pod and telling us all about your new books. Do you have any events coming up to celebrate?
Oh, I do.
Can you tell us about them?
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. On the 4th of July, I have my Seasons of Clementine launch at Harry Hardog at Carindale. And on the 19th of July, I am launching The Witch Who Couldn't Spell at Quick Brown Fox with the beautiful Anna and Teresa. And I'm also going to be running some library workshops across Brisbane City libraries in the school holidays. So you can I'm going to put all of this sort of stuff onto socials. So the best place to find anything that I do is on Instagram, because that's probably where I share the most, but also on my website, and I have a Facebook page too. And my big thing this year is wanting to get out into more schools and work with kids, because that's my joy, and I miss that. We were talking about, I've been sort of out of the classroom for a little bit, and I do miss those connections. But all my local bookshops, Mad Hatter's Bookshop, the Little Gnome in Wynnum, like I'll be doing events there too. So
awesome.
Watch this space.
Definitely. There's going to be some good ones there to check out. Can't wait. Thank you so much, Jess. It was so fun talking to you today.
I loved talking to you. Thank you. I'll talk to you any day.
Awesome.
Thanks,
we'll have to have you back.
Tina.
Thanks, Jess. Good luck with your
Take
new
care.
books. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Book Deal podcast. If you are enjoying the pod, we'd really appreciate you following or sharing the show in your podcast directory, checking us out on Instagram and Facebook, or supporting us through our Patreon community at patreon.com/the Book Deal podcast.